National Briefing Time with me, Kelly Nash, and I like to think of Donald Trump sitting around Mar-a-Lago or his Oval Office or his Air Force One private seats. Maybe has a couple of friends around and they brainstorm ideas to break liberals' minds. What could he say today that would drive them absolutely bonkers? And he landed on a great one the other day. He decided he was going to quote and justify his decisions based off the advice and the counsel of one Vladimir Putin.
States are now pushing back after President Trump announced yesterday he will be signing an executive order aimed at banning mail-in ballots nationwide ahead of the 2026 midterm. Trump has long blamed mail-in ballots for his 2020 election loss. It's a topic that he says actually came up during his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Vladimir Putin, smart guy, said you can't have an honest election with mail-in voting. And he said there's not a country in the world that uses it now.
There's not a country in the world that uses mail-in ballots. And I am quoting my great friend, one of the greatest minds of all time, Vladimir Putin. Gosh, that is next level trolling. That is supreme trolling. And the media, we'll get into some of their responses in just a second. Of course, Donald Trump knows that other countries use mail-in ballots. Lots of other countries. It's not just like a few. I mean, it's like Canada, Germany, India, Australia. There's lots of them that use mail-in ballots. But there's a big difference between what they're doing and what we're doing. We'll get into that difference here in just a second. But here's some of the media responses to Donald Trump quoting Vladimir Putin.
Mail ballots do not help one party over another. That's what all the data shows. It just helps voters vote in a secure and accessible way.
Pennsylvania, leading up to the last election, spent $16 million in that state. In another battleground state, North Carolina, Republicans actually sent in more mail-in ballots. Is Trump just undermining all that work?
Look, it's Republicans made great ground up in 2024. Trump got a ton of votes this way. And of course, he's undermining Republicans. And certainly, Trump, I'm not sure he knows what he's doing here.
Of course, Trump's undermining the Republicans because he doesn't know what he's doing. Great point, sir. Donald Trump is a boob. He's just he's magooing his way through life. He's just inadvertently landing in the right spot. He just stumbled into the presidency twice. He's just happened to have the good fortune of following Joe Biden because Joe Biden had teed it up so perfectly that we had the most successful 6 months in American history when you look at legislation and the accomplishments. That was all Joe Biden. Everybody knows that. Or perhaps Donald Trump actually does know what he's doing. Perhaps Donald Trump recognizes that he won Pennsylvania and North Carolina in spite of mail-in voting, not because of mail-in voting. That the reason the Republicans went so hard on the mail-in voting is because they recognized that is the game that is being played. And if that's the game, we have to win the game. But we should make the game fair. The game, whatever game you're talking about. Major League Baseball is proposing major rules changes because they want to make the game better. We would like to make elections better. We would like to make elections great again. Make elections great again. Has anybody come up with that one? Did I just stumble upon another variation of MAGA, the mega movement? And the argument that, the reason you can't change it is because so many Americans love mail-in votes is just an asinine argument. I mean, Americans love frozen pizzas as well, but going to the MAHA movement, Robert Kennedy would tell you that ultra-processed foods is what's giving so many of us cancer. So just the fact that we love something doesn't mean that it's good. That I understand that might be breaking news for the libs as well. But here's the difference between other countries and us. Other countries invest heavily in the security of the mail-in ballots. And what I mean by that is this is the way most of them do it. You want to do a mail-in ballot this year? You don't want to come in person? That's fantastic. Get us a copy of your passport, mail us a copy of your passport or your state-issued ID. In this instance, for most people, it would be a driver's license, perhaps a town ID if you don't have a driver's license. You have to, it's incumbent upon you to figure out how to take that identification that we forced you to get and then put that into a mailbox and mail it to us. We will then verify that that is somebody who's supposed to be voting. We will then mail you back a special ballot, and that will have a barcode on it that only matches your vote. If for some reason that barcode vote goes through and it doesn't have your name and your identification with it, again, it's ineligible. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of money. That is a completely different system than we have currently in the United States. So if you want to secure the election, if you want to make sure, as the Democrats always say, we have to make sure every vote counts, then that is what you have to do. You got to do the hard work of securing the elections. The easiest way to do that is force you to come down in person, show ID in person, walk into a ballot box which is not hooked up to the internet, and then vote there. It'd be even better if we made you do it in pen and pencil. Or, you know what I'm saying? Make them fill it out by hand. So there's absolutely no possibility of you getting it wrong. But until we can do that, if Donald Trump doesn't think you can fix that before the midterm elections, then he's right to call it off because every vote should count. And there's certain basic laws of life. Like when Donald Trump used to say, if you don't have borders, secure borders, then you don't have a country. There's no way to argue against that. If our country and Mexico are just interchangeable, then their rules would apply to us and our rules would apply to them. And then there's really no laws and nobody knows what's happening. That's how you get chaos. In an election, if you don't secure the votes, making sure that people who are voting are eligible to vote, they're not like it is in Chicago where the dead vote outnumbers the live vote 2-1. Who really won in Chicago? By the way, and right now, look, if you want to talk about voter fraud, and people like to say, like that lady, it never happens. There's no voter fraud. You got right now 2 in Michigan, city council members, I believe they are. They're on trial because they're on video stuffing ballots into the mailbox. Hundreds of them in the 2024 election. They got caught. According to the Heritage Foundation, in the last 10 years, you've had over 1,300 people successfully prosecuted for voter fraud. And it's not like I inadvertently mailed in a ballot when I used to live in a different address and now it's this address. It's like, no, we got hundreds of ballots, filled them out, and there's, we were frauding. We were trying to win an election by cheating. This happens all the time in the United States. We need to prioritize everyone's vote. And in order to prioritize it, yes, it's a constitutionally guaranteed right. So prove who you say you are. There's also a constitutionally guaranteed right to buy weapons. Do you see the left saying we got to make it easier to buy weapons? Do you see them saying, why do I have to show an ID to buy a weapon? Can't I just mail in my request for a weapon? And even if I had to pay the shipping charges, couldn't I just mail that off to Dick's Sporting Goods and say I'd like a AR to be mailed to my home without proving who I am? Can't I do that? Listen, the lunacy has to stop, and we have to fix the elections. If we can't fix them before the midterms, then Donald Trump's right to say we're just going to go back and do it old school.